presenting an oral presentation of Where the Map Ends, Chapter 1, Small Town Beginnings.
Chapter 1, Birth of a Boy. Rural Nebraska, June 1941. The cries of a newborn baby pierced the stale air of the delivery room at Brookings Regional Hospital. After a long and arduous labor, Martha Carter had finally brought her first child into the world. The doctor held up the squirming, reddish baby and announced, "It's a boy." Martha fell back onto the bed, exhausted but overjoyed. Her husband George peered down at the boy in wonder. "A son," he murmured. The nurse wrapped the bawling baby in a blue blanket and placed him in Martha's arms. She and George gazed at their child, this new life they had created. "What should we call him?" Martha asked softly. George pondered a moment before suggesting, "How about Daniel, after your grandfather?" Martha nodded approvingly. "Little Daniel Carter, welcome to the world." The infant's crying ceased as he nestled against his mother's chest. The young couple smiled blissfully, still in awe of their bundle of joy. Soon, a nurse arrived to take Daniel to the nursery and let Martha get some much-needed rest. As he drifted off to sleep in the sterile metal crib, the tiny boy had no idea what kind of world awaited him outside the hospital walls. He did not know that over the years to come, he would often gaze out his bedroom window wondering if there was more to life beyond this sleepy little farm town. In February of 1943, Daniel Carter, now called Danny by his family, became a big brother. His mother Martha gave birth to a daughter named Susan. 2-year-old Danny was fascinated by the squishy red creature his parents brought home from the hospital. "Be gentle, dear," his mother coached as Danny reached out to poke at his new sister. Danny was amazed that Susan was so tiny, with stubby fingers and toes. She mostly ate, slept, and cried those first few months. Danny asked his parents, "When will she be big enough to play with me?" His father George just chuckled. "Not for a while, son, but one day she'll be running around here driving you crazy, you'll see." As Susan got bigger, Danny enjoyed making her smile and laugh. When she took her first wobbly steps, Danny cheered her on excitedly. He started dreaming up fun games they could play together as soon as Susan was old enough. For now, Danny just practiced his reading skills by reciting picture books to her as she sat on his lap. The two siblings were the best of friends, despite their age difference. Danny included Susan in the adventures he imagined with his toy soldiers and trains. He didn't mind letting her tag along, even if she did slow him down sometimes. At night, he would crawl into Susan's crib and soothe her to sleep by singing lullabies. Danny did feel jealous on occasion when his parents cooed over cute little Susan, but his jealousy always faded when he saw how happy his baby sister was to be around her big brother. Danny vowed to always protect Susan and be her closest confidant. By the time Danny turned 5 years old in the summer of 1946, he was used to life on the farm in rural Nebraska. Each morning he woke up to the crowing of roosters outside his window. The smell of bacon and eggs wafted upstairs from the kitchen where his mother cooked breakfast. Danny would rush downstairs in his cotton pajamas to find 3-year-old Susan already seated in her high chair. "Danny!" she would squeal in delight at the sight of her beloved big brother. Danny made silly faces to entertain her. Soon their father George would finish his early chores and join them around the wooden table. He led the family in saying grace before meals. Attending their Methodist church was a cornerstone of the Carters' life. Each Sunday, the family dressed in their finest clothes and drove into town for the morning service. Danny didn't mind church so much. He liked seeing his friends and singing in the children's choir. Reverend Willis's long sermons could be boring, but Danny daydreamed or watched dust particles floating through shafts of colored sunlight from the stained glass windows. Being only 5, Danny didn't comprehend all the religious doctrine yet. But he understood church was important to his parents, so he always tried to be on his best behavior. Kneeling beside them during prayers made Danny feel part of something bigger than himself. In September 1947, Danny started first grade at Brookings Elementary. His school was a two-story brick building housing grades 1 through 6. Danny felt anxious but excited walking there holding his mother's hand that first morning. Martha kissed Danny's cheek and assured him he would have a wonderful day. She left him in the care of his teacher, Miss Lily, a kindly older woman. Danny found his desk with his name tag on it and did his best to focus on Miss Lily teaching the alphabet. Everything was so new and interesting. During recess, Danny played tag on the schoolyard with the other boys. One boy named Benjamin joined their game. "Call me Ben," he told Danny with a friendly grin. By the end of that first day, Ben and Danny were already fast friends. Danny loved telling his parents all about his new school at dinner time. "Miss Lily is so nice, and I met a kid named Ben who's really fun to play with." As the school year went on, Danny and Ben became inseparable. They sat together in class, played every recess, and walked home side by side after school. On the weekends, the two boys would explore the woods together near their houses, pretending to be explorers or soldiers. Susan tagged along when their parents allowed it. The trio had grand adventures under the sunlit forest canopy. At night, Danny would drift off to sleep picturing the fun he and Ben would have the next day. He was grateful to have met such a good friend so early in life. Their childhood escapades were just beginning. In 1950, the Carter family experienced a tragic loss when Danny's 1-year-old baby brother Mark passed away from pneumonia. Danny was only 9 at the time, but the memory of that year stayed with him. He had been so excited to have a little brother to play with. Baby Mark was born in the spring of 1949, arriving home to much fanfare. Danny proudly helped care for the newborn, rocking his cradle and singing silly songs to make him laugh. But only a year later, their family was devastated when Mark's cough turned into a fatal illness. Danny didn't fully understand sickness and death at his young age. All he knew was his parents were inconsolable with grief at losing their baby boy. Danny overheard them crying and praying late into the night after Mark had been buried in the town cemetery. At school, Danny couldn't focus. He missed his baby brother. He kept expecting to see Mark sitting in his high chair at mealtimes. The house felt strangely empty without that smiling little face. Danny wished he could have protected Mark somehow. The whole family changed after Mark's death. His mother Martha became nervous about anything jeopardizing her 2 remaining children. His father George threw himself into work on the farm, as if staying busy could numb the pain. Young Susan cried a lot, missing her baby brother and sensing her parents' profound sadness. Only 6 years old, she was confused about where Mark had gone. Danny tried to distract her with games and stories, pushing his own grief down. He had to be strong for Susan now. In 1953, 12-year-old Danny started 6th grade. He still walked to and from school with his best friend Ben every day. Lately, Danny felt his relationship to Ben evolving from childhood playmates into something deeper. When their hands accidentally brushed reaching for a pencil, Danny's heart raced. That year, Ben and Danny bonded over reading The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Danny imagined floating down the Mississippi on a raft with Ben like Tom and Huck. He sympathized when Tom had a crush on Becky Thatcher. Danny didn't know if he had a crush on anyone, but he sensed his feelings for Ben were special. At school, Danny spent the most boring classes sketching goofy pictures to pass to Ben. Science was taught by an ancient Mr. Kendall who seemed older than the dinosaurs in their textbook. During his droning lectures, Danny drew silly caricatures of the teacher to make Ben laugh. Most weekends, the pair could be found camping out under the stars in sleeping bags in Ben's backyard. They stayed up late talking about life while roasting marshmallows over the campfire. Danny felt so comfortable and free with his best friend. He wished every night could be like this. In the mornings, the smell of Ben's mom's pancakes lured them inside. where they devoured big stacks dripping with maple syrup. Danny loved being included as an honorary member of Ben's family. No matter what the future held, he knew Ben would always be a part of his life. The summer before starting 7th grade, the Brookings community held its annual summer carnival. After petting zoos and sack races all afternoon, the evening featured a lively street dance. String lights twinkled as music filled the balmy night air. Most of the teenagers stood awkwardly on the sidelines, but a few brave couples swayed to romantic tunes. Danny noticed Ben chatting with a pretty blonde girl named Mary. She said something that made Ben throw his head back laughing. Danny wasn't sure why, but his stomach churned watching his best friend with Mary. They seemed happy and carefree dancing together. Danny wished he could be the one out there goofily spinning Ben around instead of her, but he knew people might find that strange. "Hey, Danny, come dance with me," his sister Susan said, tugging at his hand. Danny smiled down at her eager face. "Sure thing, sis." Danny let Susan stand on his shoes as he twirled her around the makeshift dance floor. She giggled gleefully, and Danny pushed his confusing feelings aside to simply enjoy the moment with his sister, but he still glanced over at Ben longingly once in a while. Later, as the carnival was winding down, Danny and Ben sat chatting beneath the big oak tree while waiting for their folks. "Did you have fun dancing with Mary?" Danny asked, hoping he sounded casual. Ben shrugged with embarrassment. "She's nice, but she's not my type." Before Danny could ask what that meant, their parents arrived to drive them home. The answer would have to wait for another day. The summer before 8th grade, Danny worked odd jobs around town to earn some extra cash. He mowed lawns, walked neighbors' dogs, and helped clerks stock shelves at the general store. After one grueling shift, he went to meet up with Ben at the soda fountain. Ben was in their usual booth with 2 chocolate malts waiting. "One for the hardest working guy in town," he said, sliding a malt toward Danny. The cold sweetness was refreshing after a long day. "So," Ben said, fidgeting with his straw wrapper, "there's a big end-of-summer dance at my church next week. I was thinking of asking Mary to go with me." Danny's heart sank, though he wasn't sure why. "Oh, that's great, buddy." He tried to sound enthusiastic. Ben bit his lip nervously. "But I don't know if I want to go with her. Sometimes I think—" Ben trailed off, staring at his malt. "Never mind. It's stupid." Danny studied his friend, sensing his inner turmoil. He wished he could make things simpler for Ben, but the world wasn't so simple. "It's not stupid if it matters to you," Danny offered. Ben gave a small smile of gratitude. They sat in companionable silence, taking comfort in having each other to confide in about life's growing complexities, even without fully understanding them yet. On the first day of 9th grade, Danny attended Brookings High School for the first time. The halls were full of rowdy teenagers shouting and joking around. Danny stuck close to Ben as they navigated the chaos together. At lunch, Ben and Danny sat together trying to look relaxed and like they belonged. "So, are you trying out for the baseball team this spring?" Ben asked between bites of his sandwich. "I'd like to," Danny replied. "My dad keeps saying I should. How about you?" Ben shook his head. "Nah, I'll leave that to you athletic types. I was thinking of joining the school paper, though. I like writing." Danny playfully flexed his arm muscle. "Well, us jocks have to stick together. I'll put in a good word for you with the team." They both laughed, already easing into their high school roles. Danny was grateful to have his best friend by his side entering this new phase. He knew Ben had his back. As they began the 2-mile walk towards home, he gave Ben a friendly slap on the back. "Here's to surviving freshman year."
Find this story on Kindle Vella in the description below or subscribe to this channel for the next chapter. Thank you for listening.